My father was killed by an axe. But that's not the most shocking part of this story. In November of 2004, 52-year-old Peter Porco and his wife, 54-year-old Joan Porco, were like so many other middle-aged, middle-class Americans. They lived in Del Mar, New York in a cozy 2-story home and they worked for a living. They had been married for over 30 years and they had 2 sons. Christopher was a 21-year-old student at the University of Rochester and his brother, Jonathan, was a 23-year-old naval officer stationed at a submarine base in Groton, Connecticut. On Monday, November 15, 2004, Peter woke up to start his typical Monday morning work routine. He got up, he got out of bed, he went into the bathroom, he relieved himself, he looked in the mirror, he shaved, he got dressed in his work clothes. He went downstairs and put on a pot of coffee. While the coffee was brewing, he unloaded the dishwasher and then put the dirty dishes into the dishwasher and started it. He wanted to get his newspaper. So he went outside, he got his newspaper, but he realized he locked himself out of the front door. So he got the spare key out from underneath the mat, opened the front door, went inside, sat down, had some coffee, and read the newspaper. After a few minutes, he put his coffee cup in the sink, he packed himself a lunch in his lunchbox, and then he headed for the door to head for work. Peter was known as a very reliable employee who was also very punctual and rarely missed work. So when he didn't get to work that Monday morning, the court was a little bit confused. They called him to see if he was okay, he didn't pick up. So they dispatched a court officer to go make sure he was okay. And so the officer arrives at his house, he sees cars in the driveway, the front door shut, he goes up, he knocks on the door, nobody answers. He tries the handle of the front door, he realizes it's open, so he opens the door and he yells out, "Hey, I'm just looking for Peter." And the door hits something on the ground, pokes his head inside and looks down. And there on the ground, the thing blocking the door is Peter Porco's body. He's clearly unresponsive. And he clearly has a severe injury on his head. The court officer steps outside immediately, calls 911, local police show up, they go inside and sure enough, Peter is unresponsive. They go upstairs and they find his wife, Joan, in bed, also with a severe injury on her head, but she was still breathing. Joan was rushed to a hospital where she underwent emergency surgery and then was put into a medically induced coma. Meanwhile, the police began their investigation into who could have done this. They quickly discovered that the home's alarm system had been smashed and a phone line had been cut from the outside. A screen in one of the windows had been slashed that looked like the way someone climbed into the house. However, nothing appeared to have been taken because police almost immediately found Peter's wallet with money inside of it still sitting in the house, as well as very expensive jewelry that belonged to Joan still sitting in the house. As they continued to search the house, they discovered a fireman's axe that belonged to the Porcos hidden inside of one of the bedroom closets. And it was very clear this was the weapon that caused the injuries. The Porcos' sons had been away during this incident. John was on his submarine in Connecticut and Chris was at the University of Rochester. And in fact, Chris found out about the incident on his parents when he saw a news report because this story of this innocent, typical seeming American couple in a quiet suburb getting hurt by some axe-wielding person had gone totally viral, and it was all over the news. And so Chris called the police to get more information about his parents' condition. Here's the recording. "Hi, my name is Chris Porco. I was just called by a union saying that my parents were found unresponsive this afternoon. I was wondering if you had any information. I don't know what my mom is." The police replied, "Yeah, she is at Albany Med." "Okay, do you know her condition?" "No, because I haven't talked to her." "Let me give you my badge number." As you can tell, Chris is very calm. He's not emotional. He's not upset about what's happened to his parents. No, actually, he sounds as calm as if he's ordering a pizza because Chris Porco was actually a very troubled person and he was the one who hurt his parents with the axe. As it turns out, Chris was failing at school and taking out huge loans in his father's name by forging his signature and his father found out about it. So Mr. and Mrs. Porco write their son a strongly worded email where they tell him this behavior has to stop and they're very disappointed in him, but they love him and they will help him get back on his feet. Chris responded by driving home in the middle of the night, sneaking into his house and hurting his parents with an axe. While this case is already shocking and sad and tragic, it's what happens to Chris's father after the incident that makes it one of the most unbelievable cases of all time. After being struck 16 times in the head and laying unconsciously in his bed as his son snuck out of his house, Peter suddenly sat up and began his morning routine. He got dressed. He went to the bathroom. He shaved. He went downstairs. He made coffee. He did his chores. He went outside to get the newspaper. He got locked out. He got the key from under the mat, went back inside. He packed his own lunch when he was finally ready to go. He headed for the door and then he collapsed and he was unresponsive. Due to the severity of Peter's head injury, his brain was basically broken and it was unable to recognize he had been gravely hurt. So in his final moments, he believed it was just a typical Monday morning going about his work routine when in reality he had a serious injury on his head and he was basically unresponsive after the 16th blow to his head. One of the more surprising and heart-wrenching details of this case is that Joan Porco, she did survive the incident and after she came out of that medically induced coma, she said she forgot all the details of the incident. Even when she was discovered in her bed, she did indicate that Chris, her son, was the person who hurt them. Nonetheless, she got together $250,000 to post Chris's bail and she allowed him to come stay with her during his trial. And the two attended the trial together, walking into the courthouse hand in hand. Chris was very quickly found guilty of hurting his father and attempting to hurt his mother, and he was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. Despite the verdict, Joan Porco still speaks to Christopher over the phone and frequently visits him in prison. It's unclear if she still believes he is innocent.